The powers that be are sort of freaking out because they're losing. They didn't anticipate the springing of cryptos. It was universe providing us the opportunity to express ourselves outside of the slave system that has been imposed on us, and it's got them all freaked out because they can't close these doors once universe makes them.
Hey friends, thanks so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys tuning in. I think you're very much going to love this conversation because guess what? It's with Clif High, and everybody loves Clif High, and boy, has he been on fire. At least the WebBot data has been on fire. It's been very accurate as it pertains to cryptos. Today we're going to talk some cryptos, we're going to talk silver, and a whole lot more. Clif High, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for joining us. And I just want to mention that Three Amigos interview you did, that three-way call with Bix and Jay Snip was a hoot. I enjoyed that. And, I don't want to, rehash the same exact info, but for those who didn't catch that interview, we will talk about some of that info here. And guys, if you haven't already, head over to halfpasthuman.com and check out the Curious Crypto Compendium. That's the forecasts for June 2017 through 2018. Well, it's all here. If you want to know which cryptos he's recommending and what he thinks the forecast is for those cryptos, this is the document to get. It's $99. It's money well spent. Curious Crypto Compendium, only from halfpasthuman.com. Cliff, let me ask you something. First let me just say, as it pertains to Ethereum, I own some Ethereum. I made it very clear to folks that I bought some Ethereum. When I first did, I made a video saying you might want to dip your foot in the pool. I bought some at 20. And it's just been on
pretty
fire.
Smart.
Well, I got lucky. Well, I don't, here's the thing. I made it clear in the video. I don't want people watching this rocket ship go to the moon because I'd been listening to your interviews, and you've been very clear about where these things are headed. So maybe we should start the conversation about Ethereum. What makes Ethereum and that network, that blockchain, so special?
It has so many components that Bitcoin does not. Now, it's not to say Bitcoin is lagging them because Ethereum is entirely a different kind of a critter. Its blockchain is larger, faster, more diverse. It is as well encrypted, but it's entirely intended to support a corporate overstructure. And this overstructure is going to be the interaction of all these software robots that will fuel themselves on Ethercoin through this complex algorithmic process that converts ether into what's called whey, and then whey into what's called gas. And it gives the gas to the robot, and the robot can go on out and do work for you, like make money for you. So basically what we'll all do is we'll end up building hedge fund robots or bank robots or money transfer robots or house buying robots or whatever, give them a few Ethercoin and say, y'all go off and work and tell me when you're done. And they'll be able to work globally. They'll be able to work without borders. It is going to be just really fantastic. And in fact, it could even work off planet as long as we had a continuous internet connection off to the moon or wherever. So it's really, Ether is really cool. It's not like Bitcoin. Bitcoin serves an entirely different function and purpose within the crypto space ecosphere.
Now, I want to ask you something about Ethereum as it pertains to the number of coins available. I've heard that the total number of coins is uncapped.
That's not. That is both true and not true. Okay, the finite number is not etched in stone in the sense of everybody knows it's going to be 21 million point XXX. Rather, what it is capped, but it's capped by what's known as a tailing or trailing algorithm. So once certain conditions are met within the ecosphere, thereafter the mining will gradually trail off over the course of decades until only enough ether are created every year in order to support the level of consumption at the current business environment. So let me be clear about that. Ether is a very complex monetized token, and it can be converted into energy for software robots. So consequently, it gets burned up because these software robots run on a physical platform, or they run on the cloud, which is kept on a physical platform of all these machines, and somebody's got to pay the electric costs. And so basically that's what happens, is that gas over time, through the various different mechanisms, gets converted into paying the electricity bill. And so the ether gets consumed. Therefore, you need to have a continuing supply capable of supporting the rate at which the businesses burn the ether. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the other thing that makes sense to me is that what's going on here in the crypto space is a game changer. And I've been having this conversation more and more. Just had one recently with Chris Duane, who's a buddy of mine, and he's still very much entrenched in just the physical precious metals camp. And my concern about that is that if this is a game changer and the cryptos are here to stay, which I think at least some of these cryptos are definitely here to stay, as we see all these corporations now becoming involved and interested in Ethereum, something very significant is happening. I think it's a sea change, but this is not investment advice. I want to be very clear here. I don't want people to run out and cash out, IRAs to jump into this space. I think you should probably only put into this space what you can afford to lose, because who really knows and who can really predict the future other than Clif. But I just want to say this, guys. I want to play this from that interview with Bix and JSNP and Clif, in which Clif said this about the cryptos in general. Just listen to this.
And so they're going to be buying really soon, but they have not yet for a lot of regulatory reasons. So we haven't even seen the start of it.
All right, I'll pause it there. Clif, I think there you were commenting basically on Wall Street, about the funds, the fund managers, and corporations.
Exactly, but also specifically insurance companies and retirement funds, which are not allowed by law to get into weird stuff like the cryptos.
Right.
And so they're going to be very much back, very much behind the curve.
Okay, so I made a video not long ago. It was titled $2,000 Bitcoin. Could Ethereum go to 1,000? And at that point, Ethereum was at $187 and Bitcoin was at 2,000. Now Bitcoin is at 2,850 and Ethereum is at a new all-time high around 265. Are we in a bubble? Should people be afraid? What would you tell somebody who's sitting on the sidelines as it pertains to the prices of these cryptos today versus a year from now, 5 years from now?
Well, it's kind of like the answer to all of your questions is yes. Yes, people should be afraid. I mean, other than a bubble. We're not in a bubble. Well, we are in a bubble actually, okay, but we're not in a crypto bubble. We're in a dollar bubble. The whole planet is so flooded with dollars that the bubble is popping, and the bubble is so big that when it pops, it's not going to be a pop. It's going to be this giant sort of whoosh, because there's just so much of the planet's atmosphere involved in it. And so that bubble is popping right at the moment, and as it is whooshing out, some of that is going into cryptos, and some of it can be expected to go into precious metals. But there's so many dollars in this bubble that they're not able to fit through the narrow openings that we have into the precious metal space and into the crypto space. And that's what we're watching at the moment. This is why there is danger, because in the chaos of this particular period of time, there will be conditions that will make people less cautious than they should be and allow for both error, unintentional, as well as criminally supported error to occur. And so you have to be careful. Don't be a victim of fraud, but also don't trip over your own 2 feet in getting involved in a new technology kind of thing. But this will also pertain to the silver and the precious metals markets, where I expect a lot of fraud to start really showing up as people try anything and everything to take advantage of all of the whoosh out of dollars into that market as well. So I would expect, for instance, that counterfeit coins will really start ramping up as the dollar values of the precious metals also start ramping up. So a very dangerous time in general. However, as the Chinese characters will affirm, in chaos there is opportunity. And so there is danger and risk, but there is also life and dynastic level opportunity that is occurring right at this moment if one is aware enough to look around and see it.
Well, and that's the way I'm looking at this too. I definitely want to look at this as an opportunity, and that's why I've been making these videos and covering this since, Ethereum was at 20. I just wish I'd been more intellectually curious about Ethereum when it was at 7. It sat at 7 to 8 for 6-7 months, and I had my Coinbase account open because I had bought a couple Bitcoin. And guys, why did I buy a couple Bitcoin? Because I've listened to Clif, and he's so often right. The web bot data is so often right that, I made the argument that who wants to miss the potential of this thing going back to all-time highs? At that point, Bitcoin had pulled back down to like 253, and I finally bought some at, 450. I think I bought one, in fact, and then I just added a little bit as we went. The bottom line here is that the train has left the station, and I just think that based on the WebBot data, it just may be going far, far, far higher. And for those who feel like they've missed the boat, take your time, give this some thought. Cliff, I guess you were just telling me Coinbase right now, the popularity of this stuff is soaring so much it's hard to even get a Coinbase account opened in a timely manner.
The timely manner is the issue. Coinbase is really strict. I like that. They've got a really, I actually know a couple of the people that were involved in their early, I don't know even if they still work there, but in the early security system stuff for Coinbase relative to transferring dollars and stuff back and forth. And they do really good work. And so Coinbase is just going to be a little bit bogged down at the moment. But it wouldn't matter even if they had anticipated a tenfold increase in their sign up rate, they still would not have been able to cope with the 20-fold or the 50-fold that they're getting. So you can see that it was just basically impossible for them to plan what we're going to experience, or what we're experiencing now and what we will experience over these next few weeks. This is going to be, it'll be really grindingly slow the rest of the year trying to get into exchanges and this sort of thing, especially after, say, September. But the big burst of everybody's attention is going to be sucked in over the course of this summer, and that's going to cause this bottleneck on all the exchanges. And so getting verified will take time. You'll have to know that you're going to have to provide, absolute proof of your ID and connections into your bank account and all of this kind of stuff, because they're attempting to fight fraud at every opportunity. And so, so you just have to bear in mind on that. Also, we have to be careful too for those people that are going to be tempted to buy through local exchanges, where you can just show up at a Starbucks, hand over some cash, and get some Ethereum coin beamed at your phone, because there will be people that will try and scam in on that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I would just say this too for folks who are thinking about getting one of these accounts. At Coinbase, right now you can only buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. So I have a little bit of each, so we can talk to Cliff about that. Again, you're going to want to get his report to get these specific other cryptos, most of which I don't own, which he mentions in detail. But I'm actually going to reveal to you guys too some of the other really small, teeny tiny, cheap cryptos that I have that I just threw a little bit of gambling money at, because who knows, maybe they'll do what Ethereum did. So I'll mention that here in a second. People can go check those out on Poloniex, which is where you can buy a lot more than just those three I mentioned at Coinbase. So Cliff, I want to ask you this as it pertains to safeguarding cryptos. Again, the old adage, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. That I think is very true with the precious metals, and I think it will be true in the future. Certainly it was true for the Mt. Gox folks as it relates to Bitcoin. How do people protect their cryptos, and how important is it to have your own wallet and get your cryptos sort of off Coinbase once you've purchased them? Number one. And number two, how much of an emergency situation may that be given the Bitcoin fork BIP 148 coming up on August 1st?
I don't know that the BIP 148 is going to be an issue at all relative to any of this. I actually expect that maybe it'll have some impact on the price of Bitcoin the day before, and then the day of, and then the day following will trail off any impact. So I'm not even thinking about that. The issues of getting it off Coinbase are really good, because it's sort of like this, guys. You have to understand that here we have all these shining, we don't have that many of them. Say maybe there's 100 around the whole planet, these giant shining edifices of crypto collections that we call the exchanges. These things shine like beacons on the internet. And so they've got millions of wannabe crackers and hackers trying to figure out ways to scam them and break in and do things to cause them problems and basically make a profit out of it. And so these guys are really under attack the whole time. So it makes sense not to burden them with trying to protect your assets. They're going to be looking after everybody's assets and not yours specifically. So, and especially since it's so easy, because here's the key to all of this. Once you get a wallet on your PC or phone, you can print off all of them that I've seen have got the ability to print off your private keys. And these are the numbers that you need to recover your wallet. Crypto is very robust. If you drop your wallet of physical cash, whether it's euros or dollars or won or yen or something in an airport, it's gone. You'll never see that cash again. But if you were to drop your wallet of cryptos, but you happen to remember or have stashed one of the keys, you can rebuild that wallet again and recover all of that money. So it's vital that you do this, and it's really simple because you're just dealing with text. It's just these weird, goofy-looking numbers and letters that are all clumped together into a couple of big long strings. And once you have those printed off on good archival paper with good quality ink, you take and put them into a bank vault, renew them every few years just because the thing will fade, and you can always recover. So it's real easy to do, and it's all text. And if you want to back it up and keep it more live, get a USB or one of those little SD cards and just copy it over to that and just keep copying every so often. Because it's text, it's very small, it doesn't take much space. You can copy the whole folder into an encrypted subdirectory that only you know that, Bob's Big Toe is where you're actually storing all of your cryptos. And so it's no worries at all. It's in an encrypted format. Nobody can steal from you. So see, cryptos are actually better than cash in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that makes you feel old if you're me. It's when you jump into this thing, and I just want to share this with folks because I think it's sort of a humorous aside. I mean, nothing makes you feel older than being in your mid-40s and getting into the crypto space for the first time. Now, the Coinbase thing was easy because you can set up an account and you can deal with cash. You can actually buy your Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin with cash. And boy, that's something that makes sense to me. I've been doing that my whole life. But then I opened up the Poloniex account, and I quickly realized you can't fund it with cash. You have to fund it with Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. So you have to transfer some of those cryptos over to your Poloniex account. And it was just a big learning curve for me. And I think then the next learning curve is all this other stuff you're talking about with the private keys and the private wallets and all that stuff. It kind of spooks people. But the point I'm trying to make is if you just take baby steps, start with a Coinbase account maybe.
Start with YouTube. Okay,
well, that's true. No, that's very.
You're correct. Look, it's good. If you start with a Coinbase account, it might take you a week to get your Coinbase account verified. So this is really a good idea. Go start your Coinbase account right now, give them all the information, and then go to YouTube and start educating yourself on what you just got into.
Right. No, that's terrific advice. And I've watched a lot of YouTube videos about these things. And, I know that you could get the Ledger Nano S or the Trezor to set up to get your own private keys, I guess, to get your coins off of these exchanges and onto these devices. Still a little scary to me. So what I admire about you, Cliff, is that you're just so technically savvy. I mean, you're building your own, private node or whatever it's called with your Ethereum, 1100 Ethereum.
I want to actually run the little robots. I want to write some of the little software, the robots. It's just kind of cool. I enjoy that. So yeah. So I want to play on that Ethereum thing, and so I've got to run a full node on there to join into the network.
Yeah, Cliff's got a 1100 Ethereum floating around out there somewhere, but because they are on the blockchain and the transaction actually occurred, he'll get them. He just needs to build that node, and
just a matter of time. Correct.
Just a matter of time. That's why I sense no panic in your voice.
It's like I'm not motivated by money. I don't want to use them as money anyway. I want to use them to feed my robots and get gas out of it.
Yeah. Well, again, you're an early adopter, and we can all learn from early adopters. And the reason I wanted to start having these conversations is because I'll give Jeff Berwick, for instance, a lot of credit. He's been talking about this stuff for a very long time, and those of us that sort of put up our own walls, right? We sort of let our own cognitive dissonance get in the way, between us and cryptos, despite having all this great information from Clif. So I guess I would just say it might be a good opportunity to transition to revealing some of these other little positions I have. And when I say little positions, guys, just remember if you rewind time 2-3 years, you probably could have got Ethereum for less than $1. Probably it was at some point pennies. And, buying 50,000, 100,000 of them wouldn't have cost you more than a few $100s. That's still the case with some of these others. But some of these others may not exist in the future. Some of these others may just be, hoaxes for all I know. But I'm going to mention some of them now because, for instance, Bytecoin, BCN, I bought 49,875 of them for just a couple $100, I think $300. And I could do that on Poloniex. And the reason I say that and mention it, guys, is because, well, first of all, I should say, I think just a few months ago I could have bought 10 times that many for the same price. So even though it's just fractions of a cent, it's already gone up a lot. Same with Digibyte, Stellar, STR, Syscoin, and NEM. XEM. So I bring that up just because I don't think it's necessarily too late if you want to take an affordable gamble and just see. I don't know if Bytecoin's going to be $10 in the future, but if it does ever go there, I'll have $500,000 in Bytecoin. So your opinion on anything I just said there, Cliff, fire away if you think I'm an idiot. I can take it.
No, no, no. Well, I'm certain you're an idiot, but we all are, so that no prejudice there. There are some specific coins that you have mentioned that are non-mineable, and that's just as a big flag for me, as I don't like the non-mineable coins. Like Ripple is a non-mineable coin. It's owned by a bank consortium. They pre-mined all the coins, so it's kind of like basically a Ponzi scheme. And but non-mineable coins you can still make money on in the both the short and long term. Just I would not assume that they're necessarily going to be as well run as the distributed currencies that have a big group behind them. So there's like NEM and Stellar. Stellar is a clone of Ripple, and you got to be careful of that particular one because of the Ripple, I mean, and any of its clones, because there's a couple of flaws in its technical base. So you got to read code to be able to spot them, but they're there and they're wrestling with them at the moment. Not to say that people aren't going to be still bidding up Ripple. There's reasons to suspect that both of those coins are going to increase by at least threefold or close to it in the short term. So, I don't think they're as sound technically, but that's a technical opinion that will be actually independent of how people value these things. But now getting into the idea of this, let's eliminate the fear of missing out. Okay, no FOMO here. All right, here's the thing. We're in the infancy of this. We're in the infancy of the early days of a multi generational process as we convert out of physical material into an entirely digital exchange mechanism. So we won't lose the technology and we won't shut it down, but we will continue to grow it. Ergo, there will always be new cryptos that will be springing up pretty much continuously over the next couple of years as people try out various different schemes, many of which will fail. Many of which, though, are going to succeed. Just like we had Yahoo before we had Google, and if you'd bought in on Google at the early days, well, hey, you know where we'd be now with that. Well, and yet Google was not there at the beginning of the internet. So you can't assume that just because we're at this bleeding edge of the knife, that the rest of the knife is going to also be blank, so to speak. So I wouldn't sweat that. I'd be calm about this. I would become educated, and I would understand that, yeah, if I looked around into various different areas, I could probably find new crypto stuff that's forming and even get in on the early days before it even becomes traded, so to speak. Just that's why I brought up Veritasium in one of the reports. It just so happened to be coincident to the issuance of the report that we were getting close to the closing period on the pre-sale mining of Veritasium off of its Genesis block. And so that meant that there was going to be a brief period of time for people to buy in at, as you say, at a very reasonable or extremely cheap level on something that would mature over time into some significant money. These are the great fortunes that are going to be made here. So a lot of the fortunes we see walking around now, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and so on, were made in times like these. Some of the more recent ones in like the Opium Wars and the time of the importation of tea into Britain, people became fantastically wealthy at the beginning of that consumer society, and we're at one of those points right now. So you just have to be a little careful, but it'll continue for at least the next decade. I mean, that we still haven't even gotten into crypto coins relating to space yet, and that's going to be a huge boon period for all of the people that are in crypto space, and it might be 6 or 10 years out.
All right, well, let me ask you this, and guys, we're going to talk silver here before we wrap up, but just in the interest of time, maybe 8, 9 minutes left here, and we're going long here with Cliff because I promised him we wouldn't go longer than 30 minutes. But so I mentioned those little positions, and some of them you said are non-mineable. Is Bytecoin? I believe Bytecoin is mineable. Any story you want to give us on Bytecoin? Because that was my largest position at almost 50,000 of those.
Yeah, and it's got some serious potential going forward. There's issues at its level with the technical community behind Bytecoin, and presumably they'll overcome it. But it does have long enough legs that it's showing out into next year.
Okay.
Okay, so for instance, I have difficulty finding some of the what I think of as the cloned non-mineable coins. I have difficulty seeing any of those showing up this time next year in the data sets.
Okay. Oh, and guys, when I said my largest position, that's just means out of these little ones, out of NEM, Syscoin, Stellar, Digibyte, Bitcoin. It's the largest number, but honestly, it was just a few $100s. Ethereum is my largest position in the crypto space. All right, so let's talk good news, bad news about silver. Cliff, I was actually alarmed by something that you guys covered in that Bixweir J Snip interview. Actually, quite alarmed, and it's a little disheartening. For those of us that have been victimized by the criminal banks and the endless manipulation by international criminal banks like HSBC and Deutsche Bank, just whipsawing us back and forth. The criminality on the COMEX, the LBMA vault appears to be empty. They've got this electronic silver fix. It's just been an endless supply of salt to go in the open wound for those of us that own physical silver. Now, here's the problem. You said, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong in that interview, that silver, unfortunately, will not be an asset to be handed down through generations due to new technology that will allow essentially for the creation of silver. So, I know that the WebBot data has been suggesting much, much higher prices for silver at some point when this manipulation breaks or hyperinflation breaks out with the dollar or whatever. Tell us the good news, bad news for those of us who hold silver and what we should be looking for.
Well, the good news is that the breakout is basically occurring over this summer, and we're going to get the rocket ship that everybody has been anticipating. It's going to be fueled by Bix Weir's 150 years of suppression, so it's really going to take off. And but it would not be wise to assume that just because you're sitting on a big pile of silver, that 40 years from now you'll still be seeing that as an asset. In fact, let me think. I would suggest that you'd want to re-examine that position, say in the late 2020s. Sometime you'll see clues going along. So if specific kind of things occur, such as new technologies come on that basically would bring out what I would say would be considered to be anti-gravity, if you see that coming into the social order, that is to say, creeping into businesses in the form of like anti-gravity pads in lieu of forklifts and that sort of thing, and you see this occurring over the 2022 through 2024, then we might be on track for that period of time when we would be able to create silver starting to appear in 2028 or 2029. It's not just silver. I mean, we'll be able to create virtually any thing at an atomic level out of energy. The question is whether it's worth it to do it based on the amount of energy required to do anything. Some things we'll want to do, like silver, because they'll be so extremely precious and so hard to get for the society to continue forward, but absolutely required. And so we'll put a lot of effort into doing things like silver and some specific forms of crystals that we can't really grow. And I don't know why we can't grow these things, but it's just mentioned in the data. And so silver will be one of the very first things that will actually attempt to do this at an industrial level. But the success is not going to be instant, even when they do get their initial success in, like, say, 2028 or 2029. It might be a number of years thereafter that we would still be drawing down on physical stock for the metallics that we'll require.
Okay. Well, it sounds like alchemy, but as listeners are well aware, they're now growing diamonds, and they didn't used to be able to do that. So I guess, the alchemy of silver is certainly possible, but you're saying at least the window for those of us who hold the physical stuff, we're looking at a good decade to watch silver soar
Oh, correct. Yeah, yeah, at least that. And in the data, it always had giant fortunes being made from silver that were intergenerational. I did not mean to imply, though, and it never occurred to me, but I didn't mean to imply that the silver itself would be passed down intergenerationally. I meant that the fortune that would be acquired as a result of people owning silver at this strategic point in time. Because bear in mind, in the 2019 through, say, 2022 period of time will become an extremely critical period for silver, especially as we move into these anti-gravity technologies and others. And so the ability to use silver as a coinage will rapidly disappear to the point where people with silver hoards will be facing, daily blurbs of continuous advertising. Can we buy your silver? Can we buy your silver? Can we buy your silver? Because they'll be so desperate to get it into these technologies. Silver turns out to be very unique. For instance, everybody assumes that copper or any wire passes electricity through the actual atoms of the wire itself, and that's not true. Electricity crawls along the surface of the material. It doesn't ever go through the internal part of the wire. And silver is very unique in how electricity can crawl through it in both speed, propagation, and what you can do while it's crawling. So, for instance, if you have two copper wires together, you get this effect that's called crosstalk. And so you have to do twisted pair in order to eliminate crosstalk. You have to balance out the impedance. But we're only a few years away from the ability to put several layers of silver together, create an impedance layer that jumps across and runs across all of these things and is continuous, and then do things on that layer, using the silver basically as like the sticks that support the railroad rails. So silver would become an active part of it because of the nature of the material itself would be absolutely required, because no other material allows us to build these lattice works across the molecular structure, and then that becomes stable enough to then use for field control. I'm sorry to get into the technical aspects of it, but that's why silver is so unique. It has a property we cannot find in any other material.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And guys, we're into the bonus period here now with Clif. We're about 30 minutes officially into this call. So last question, and I'll just make this aside. I do agree with Chris Duane, guys, that one of the most, if not the most undervalued asset, tangible asset, quantifiably tangible assets on planet Earth is silver, because it has been so brutally manipulated. And Cliff, I made the comment to Chris in my last interview with him just a couple of weeks ago that in today's dollars, I think silver is as cheap as it's ever been in human history, because there's so many damn dollars and it's still 17 bucks an ounce. I mean, literally it should be at 170 just to probably keep equilibrium with, where it was, at the turn of the century here, when it was $4 or $5 an ounce. There's just so many more dollars.
We don't know, we actually have no idea how many dollars they've created.
Right.
Just the ones we know about is such a huge, giant mountain. It's unfathomable that silver is this cheap.
Yeah.
So it is quite true that, as everybody says, that silver is the linchpin. When we pull that, the banking edifice completely collapses, as does the fiat currencies and stuff. And the good news for all of us is that if we can put that off, I mean, I'm not trying to say that the silver guys need to be put off, but I'm saying if we can just put this little bit of destruction off a ways, say 6 months, even 8 months, even if the rocket ship takes off in silver, but just put off the destruction part, then we'll have a large enough base in cryptocurrencies to be able to at least continue business and limp through into some form of a rebuilding. It won't be a recovery, because we won't be able to ever recover the dollar society and the debt-based madness that we've lived through, but we can build something new from it. And I think we've got a shot. Cryptos are going so well now that I think we've really got a shot at it.
Yeah, as we're having this conversation today, the Bitcoin, Ethereum, just those two, the market cap just exceeded $100 billion. So this thing is just growing really exponentially practically at this point. All right, so the final question, this allows us to come full circle. As I cover with so many of my guests, I talk about the 1988 cover of The Economist magazine, sort of the Rothschild-controlled asset there, The Economist magazine. And on the cover of that magazine was the phoenix rising from a burning pile of fiat, and around the phoenix's neck was a gold medallion. And the gold medallion said 2018. This is a 30-year prediction for maybe this global meltdown of fiat currency. So my question for you is this. Where do you see the control of these international banking families, the generational banking wealth that has steered humanity down this direction? For those who would say that's all the cryptos are there for, it's to brainwash everybody into accepting digital currency. My counter to that is, okay, say what you want about Bitcoin and whoever created it. Maybe it's a CIA plot. Maybe, who knows? And I think you probably have thoughts on that. But so many of these others that have sprung up as a result of the free market. So my question to you is this. Where do you think we're headed in 2018, given that 30-year prediction of The Economist magazine?
I would say it was a plan, not a prediction. They were planning. That was what they were telling you. And they were planning to control and offer basically some form of gold-backed digital whatever. Anybody that says that, cryptos are there to just train us all into dealing with, one world digital money, it's like, guys, where have you been for the last 40 years that we've had everything convert all your dollars to digital? Most people don't even touch physical paper anymore.
Right.
They either have their dollars on their phones or in a plastic little piece of stuff, right?
Right, that's a great point.
So it's all digital anyway. So dollars don't exist. So where we're headed here in terms of the control is being fought out right at this moment, and the powers that be are sort of freaking out because they're losing. They and didn't anticipate the springing of cryptos. It was universe providing us the opportunity to express ourselves outside of the slave system that has been imposed on us. It was universe saying, here's your Spartacus door if you want to go through it. And we're all going through it, and it's got them all freaked out because they can't close these doors once universe makes them. You know, once universe provides the technology, and we've seen it, you can't unthink those thoughts. And so the powers that be are just, and coincidentally, a number of them are dying at the moment or in this period of time. So their organization structure has been impacted coincidentally just at the time that we have the big popping of the fiat currencies, which was their planned immolation of them all. They planned this period of time and the burning of the currencies that's occurring now. They had not planned that the rest of the humans would pop up with an idea, whether the CIA came up with it or not, that we're then taking off with and deciding our own future from. It's really cool. Reminds or brings to mind the breakup of some very large cohesive, centrally controlled environments like Yugoslavia and this kind of thing. We're at a moment where there's absolute chaos, danger, and risk. But if you just step outside and breathe in, what you're breathing in that sharp, clean taste is opportunity and freedom.
Yeah, well, I want to just say one last thing because you said something recently in an interview that just, I loved it and I hope it comes true. It might have been in the interview with Bix and Jay Snip. I think you said within a couple years the Queen is going to be looking for a job. I love that because, you know, these enemies of humanity, I would love this paradigm to shift and shift quickly. I would love for us to hit a tipping point and push these robber barons off once and for all.
Well, we have, and we're in it now. We're actually in that tipping point at this moment. And the only way people usually recognize this is from a far distance away from it, when they're looking backward in the past. We were fortunate enough that I came up with the software at the appropriate time under Universe's urging to provide us this look at it ahead of it actually occurring so that we can participate and enjoy it as it happens.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like party on, guys.
Yeah, and if you want the goods, if you want the real data, guys, check out halfpasthuman.com and purchase the Curious Crypto Compendium for $99. Forecast for June 2017 through 2018, an asymmetric linguistic trends analysis intelligence report, and you can only get it from Clif High, halfpasthuman.com. Cliff, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and enjoy your crypto ride. You're going to have a lot of fun.
All right, thank you. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate your support at sgtreport.com. Real news 24/7. God bless.
The hyperinflation is in the bond market. The massive drop in interest rates truly shows that it's the end of an empire. The empire has gotten so bloated with debt that the only way to afford the interest was to crash interest rates.